Hi, I'm Marcus, and last year I challenged myself to go to a different country every single month while working a full-time job. Stick around to the end to find out how you can too. So all the trips varied in both time and purpose, depending on how much leave I could use, how much it was going to cost me, and what was on offer where I was going. I started in Belgium for 6 days in January. This was a trip I was invited on by my now girlfriend, so she'd already done all the planning, she'd booked everything, and it was a really nice way to start without having to stress over everything. Neither of us had been to Belgium before, so we travelled about a bit. We went to Antwerp, Ghent, and De Nantes, but we stationed ourselves in Brussels, which, if I was to do it again, I definitely wouldn't. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Brussels, but it's just a bit boring and there's definitely much nicer parts to the country. One massive highlight of this trip was Wallaby. Other than Disneyland when I was 5, this was my first proper theme park and the first roller coaster I ever got to ride, so this was really fun. In February, I spent 3 days in Hamburg with my best mate, and honestly, the less I say about that place, the better. We both came away thinking, what a hellhole. March was a really fun one. I spent 5 days road tripping across the Algarve with Liv. We went parasailing, we stayed in a yurt, we even went for lunch on an eco-friendly private island. I love the freedom that comes with a road trip, and honestly, it's a lot cheaper to do that than you think. You stay in really, really budget areas, you choose the cheapest Airbnbs, you choose the cheapest hotels, and you spend the money doing the activities in different places. You then don't have to worry about public transport to any areas, you just get up and go. I think a road trip is honestly the best type of holiday. Number 4, the joint biggest trip of the year. I spent 2 weeks on a road trip across the south of France with Liv. This is one of my favourite trips of the whole year, and honestly, I would do it again in a heartbeat. That trip is the reason I post on YouTube. It's the first time I ever told anyone it was what I really wanted to do, and the first time I ever asked for help. It was the first place Liv and I ever filmed together when we filmed the Race Across the World video, and even though that's not my best performing video by any stretch of the imagination, it's my most proud one because it got me out of my comfort zone. It was insanely hard to make, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out and where it's gotten me now. We went to some incredible places like Saint Tropez and Carcassonne. We ate some incredible food, and technically, we went to another country because we went to Monaco for 2 days, which really means I actually went to 13 countries in 12 months. May was a pretty disappointing one. I only had 4 days of leave to use that month, so I used them to book a quick trip to Italy with the intention of filming more videos. I flew into Milan and drove to Consono, which is meant to be a ghost town hidden in the countryside that was built to rival Vegas. But when I got there, it turned out that there was a street food festival on, so it wasn't actually as abandoned as it's meant to be. I still filmed the video, but it didn't really work with all the people there, and it just flopped. Then I drove to Lake Como, and I didn't realize that I'd gone to Italy on the biggest traffic day of the year. I still to this day don't know what was going on, but I spent my entire time at Lake Como in bumper to bumper traffic, so that was pretty shit. Then I found out that there's a spot in Italy that's meant to be one of the best spots in the world for stargazing. So I didn't book an Airbnb for a night. I drove my car up into the mountains with the intention of sleeping in the car and spending all night looking at the stars and taking videos, only to find out that it was cloudy the entire night. So I ended up just sleeping in a car that was smaller than what I'd booked. Didn't really work for the intention of sleeping in it, and didn't get to see any stars. So it was a all in all, it was a pretty wasted trip. I absolutely love Italy, but this trip did not hit. In June, I took this van to Wales to climb Snowdon and see a Foo Fighters concert. It was a fairly calm trip, but any chance I get to travel in this van is always great. July was by far the best. I got to tick off a childhood dream and go traveling through Japan. We went to Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, and climbed Fuji. It might have been expensive, but it was completely worth it. I've never fallen in love with a country so quickly as I did in Japan. In August, it was Liv's birthday, so I drove over to England and spent a few days in the countryside seeing a completely different side to England than the one I knew. It was cheap, relaxing, and cheerful. There's not much else to say about it. In September, Liv and I decided we wanted some fun, so we flew to Spain and stayed near Portaventura, which is an absolutely incredible theme park. We spent 2 days going to the theme park before we went and climbed the Montserrat. Then the next day we just took the train up there and looked around. And after that we went to Barcelona, which was actually really disappointing. I think the mixture of the weather and the crowds and all the scaffolding just didn't really hit on this trip. Maybe it's better at a different time of year, but Barcelona was definitely one to give a miss. This was the first time I've stayed in a hotel for more than a couple of nights. It was a really nice change of pace. We stationed ourselves close to everything we wanted to go, so there was no need to move around. Normally, we're moving every 1 to 2 nights, and we never really settle in a place, but staying for a full week in a hotel was actually a really nice change. October was wild. We went off the beaten track for this one, and we went to Albania for a week. If you've ever been to Tirana, you know what I mean when I say it's hell. Driving there is one of the most difficult things you can do, and honestly, it's not a pretty city. Down south was much nicer. Places like Gjirokastër and Himer are honestly quite lovely, but if you have to drive through Tirana, I'd honestly give it a miss. In November, I finally got to go to Amsterdam. I've been trying several times over the past 5 years, and I'm so glad that I finally got to go. It instantly became one of my favourite cities. It's so beautiful, the food's lovely, the people are lovely, the whole vibe of the place is just, it's just a bit of me. We stayed just outside the city, which meant that we were about a 20-minute train ride in, but we got to get an apartment for way cheaper than the rates in the city, and it was honestly like a nicer area than sleeping in the city, which is quite loud. On one of the days, we took a longer train ride and went to Zaanstad, which definitely gets slept on when people go to the Netherlands. It's only about half an hour away from Amsterdam, and it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. Finally, in December, I went to Malta with a friend. We'd been planning on going to Poland, but when we found 30 quid return flights to Malta, we couldn't pass up on some winter sun. Malta's one of those hidden gems in Europe. The weather's always lovely, the people are really nice, and it's insanely cheap. It's also really small, so if you rent a car, you can see the whole place in 3 or 4 days. So that's it, 12 countries in 12 months while working a full-time job. I learned quickly that in my job, you were able to play the rota. There was times I was taking 2 days off and getting an entire week's holiday, where I was just able to spend it doing what I love, which is travel. So if you work shift work, it can honestly be a lot easier than you think to travel. And then if you work a 9 to 5, when you finish at 5 on a Friday, hop on a plane to anywhere in Europe for pretty cheap. I mean, you can get flights for 20 quid, and then you spend the whole weekend somewhere new having an adventure, home on Sunday night in time to start work on Monday. It might have been expensive, but in my opinion, money comes and goes, memories are forever, and I certainly made a lot of memories along the way. It also finally gave me the confidence to quit my job and pursue a life of traveling and creating content. If you want to support that dream or see any of the videos I've made along the way, then please hit that subscribe button and follow for more. It's only going to get bigger and better from here. I'll see you next week.